Hey there, today I'm going to talk about the newest additions to the largest affiliation in the game, including a new leader. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. So I'm really excited for this release because it is going to be a big breath of fresh air into the Avengers affiliation, because it is going to make so many in-affiliation Avengers have a playable space that they didn't under Steve's leadership. Now, before I get into all of that, or the cards, or any of that other stuff, I want to give a shout out to the guild sponsor, Tritex Games. Their pre-order prices take 20% off of retail, and then you can use the code TritexGGCP5 at checkout for an additional 5% off, for a total of 25% off, which is pretty darn good. As well, thanks to Tritex, I'm able to do a monthly giveaway. To enter, all you need to do is leave a comment down in the description of this video and be subscribed to the channel. So, if you know you're wanting these characters at 25% off, well, it's not a bad deal. Especially since we have new mutants, spiders, spider foes, and Avengers all coming out soon. And with that, let's talk about one of these new Avengers with Warmachine. He has the alter ego of James Rhodes. He has 5 stamina, moves medium, and is size 2 for 3 threat. He has a physical defense of 4 and 3s on energy and mystic for a slightly better than average durability. And Warmachine wouldn't be a Warmachine if he didn't have some great attacks. So starting with his builder, Metal Storm is a physical attack that is a beam 3, strength 5 for 0 power. And it'll gain him power equal to the damage dealt, and on a wild, the target character gains the bleed special condition. Vision and Enchantress both have beam builders that guarantee them 1 power per character hit. So while Warmachine won't be as consistent, he should be most of the time getting at least 1 power, if not more, from each enemy hit with his beam attack, which would leave him with plenty of power. His next attack is also physical. It's called Rocket Pods, and has a range of 4, strength of 4 for no cost. It has the Barrage special rule that allows Rhodey to make an additional Rocket Pod attack, targeting another enemy character within range 2 of that original target. This additional attack does not have the Barrage special rule. So I can see this being handy for when the beam just can't be lined up to deal damage to multiple characters, or when you don't have the range for his other attacks. And speaking of, the last attack Warmachine has is Empty the Clip. Has a range of 3, strength of 8 for 4 power. This attack has the unique property of allowing Warmachine's crits to roll in 2 extra dice instead of just the normal 1, but at a cost. After the attack is resolved, James will take a damage for each crit in your roll, and with only 5 health, that can be quite dangerous. And he only has 2 superpowers to back up his arsenal of attacks. The first is Titanium Armor Plating. It allows Warmachine to reduce the damage of any enemy in a effect by 1 to a minimum of 1. And he has the Flight keyword. And there are no changes on his injured side. So Warmachine, in my opinion, lives up to his name. He isn't here to harass or annoy your opponents. He is here very simply to shoot things and blow things up. And he isn't even a glass cannon. He's actually quite tanky, all things considered, especially for a 3-threat character. As well, his damage output potential is spectacular. On average, his beam will probably be hitting at least 2 enemy characters, assuming you take him on an objective that will pile enemies onto a single point, and he will be doing well above average damage for a 3-threat character. And because he will have plenty of power to spend for either tactic cards or to put into Empty the Clip, now admittedly, Empty the Clip can be scary. But on average, you are taking 1, maybe 2 damage, but there are also going to be plenty of times where you're taking no damage from your dice. I'll even take this a step further and say, most of the time you'll probably want to be hitting 2 enemy characters with his beam twice over using Empty the Clip anyways. But it is a good tool for him to have if you really need to lay out the damage on a single target in an extreme situation. So he is above average in durability, and his damage output at minimum is average, and that scales really, really well. So what is he not great at? Well, pretty much whatever else is left. He doesn't have any built-in mobility, and he doesn't have any form of control. If he had either of those things, though, that's probably creeping into what the 4-threat characters are capable of, so it's probably best that he isn't able to do either of those things. The one thing I will leave you with for a bit of tactical advice, though, Warmachine isn't meant for a one-on-one battle. He can do that and be okay, but he is best suited for taking shots at multiple enemies, so try to make sure you bring him into the objectives that encourage that. And this second bit is either advice or a warning. Doom Prophecy on Warmachine is going to be very, very potent, powerful as a combo. It turns his beam attack into a 9-dice attack, his rocket pods into 2 8-dice attacks, and empty the clip. I think you get the picture at this point. Warmachine will wreck a whole lot of tables with this combo, so just be prepared on both sides. As for affiliations, he is an Avenger, or at least many of us are assuming so moving forward with that assumption, he's going to play really well under Sam's leadership, which I'll talk about here at the end of the video, but unfortunately there is zero synergy with Steve's leadership. But he will like Avengers regardless because of Avengers Assemble can help him set up to get a really nice double beam attack off. As for other affiliations, I feel like an aggressive Wakanda would welcome him as it gives him a lot of consistency and a way to use all of that power he should be generating. But really, anywhere you want to be doing damage, Warmachine could probably fit into your game plan, even if it's just to bring him in on an objective like Researchers or Gamma, where models end up getting clumped together more times than not. And with that, let's take a look at our all-new Captain America, who this time has the alter ego of Sam Wilson. He has 5 stamina, moves long, is size 2 and 3 threat. His defenses across the board are 3s for a pretty typical frame for a 3-threat character. But those base stats are about the only normal thing about him. For starters, he has a shield throw that Steve would be jealous of. It has a range of 4, strength of 4 for 0 power. Then it has 4 different abilities attached to it. First, Sam gets 1 guaranteed power. Second, this attack ignores line of sight and the target character cannot benefit from cover. Third, if this attack deals damage on a size 2 or less character, Sam can push the target character short after the attack has been resolved. Then finally, on a wild, the attack gains ricochet. This allows Sam to make another shield throw attack against another enemy character that is within range 3 of the original target character. But what's really nice is that additional attack can be any distance from Sam. But thankfully, this second attack doesn't have the ricochet rules, so Sam can't just play a full game of pinball with the enemy team. So in addition to the absurd range possibilities, guaranteed power, this shield throw can also possibly push 2 enemy characters off of objectives, or at the very least put them out of position. Again, I think Steve is a little bit jealous. Sam Cap's second attack, Red Wing Assault, is also physical and has a range of 3, strength of 6 for 4 power. If the attack deals damage and the target character is size 3 or less, Sam gets to throw them away short, and after the attack is resolved, you get to place this character within range 2 of its current position. So it's a good bit of power to spend for just a 6-dice attack, but a guaranteed range 2 place is great, and a size 3 throw on the enemy will happen more often than it doesn't. So 4 power, 4 mobility, and displacement makes this feel a little bit better. And before I get into superpowers, I just want to go ahead and say I'm not forgetting about the leadership. I just feel like it deserves its own section to really dig into it because unlike some of the other dual leader affiliations, I really don't think you can try to run either leadership out of one 10-man squad for the Avengers. But again, more on that towards the end. So, Sam's superpowers start with a bang. Charge is an active power that costs 2 power and an action, but allows Sam to make a move action followed by an attack action. Not a lot to say here, except that this is a really nice ability and it's always good to have. Sam's double tap range in a single turn is only marginally less than the best character's double tap range, like less than an inch kind of close. Granted, his 4-dice frisbee isn't super threatening, but Charge and his Red Wing Assault allow Sam to interact with or influence pretty much anywhere on the board. Just for example real quick, take a look at this. If this blue square represents a 3x3 playing space, and this red dot is Sam's base, a long move plus his base with his range 4 attack covers this much of the board. So this is the range if he wants to attack twice. Anyways, Charge on him is a real good look. Then his first reactive power is Airlift. It costs 2 power and can be used when Sam begins a move and another allied character is within range 2 and is size 2 or less. After the move action is complete, place that allied character within range 2 of its current position, and this power can only be used once per turn. So it is no drop-off, but allowing Sam to help reposition a teammate outside of their activation is always going to be really nice. This could be setting Warmachine up for his beam a little bit better, or just bringing someone back onto an objective. And while it is a bit power intensive, you can combine this power with Cap's charge for a whole lot of value out of a single move action. And finally, Cap would be complete without his Vibranium shield. For 2 power, when Sam is attacked with a physical or energy attack, he can use this ability to add 2 dice to his defense roll against that attack, bringing those defenses up to a quite respectable 5. And naturally, the former Falcon has the flight keyword, and there are no changes on his injured side of the card. So Falcon/Sam Cap has a lot of utility, but outside of his mobility, he really isn't great at any one thing. His defenses are okay most of the time. He has some support for his buddies. Both of his attacks have some control, even if they are not great for putting out the damage. So there isn't a lot of Sam that is going to be just unique to him, which lands him in a great jack-of-all-trades spot, which is totally fine for a leader to be. However, that means you won't often be bringing him outside of the affiliation. If you're looking for a mobile damage dealer, Hawkeye actually has a slightly bigger threat bubble than Sam for his double tap because of that hook arrow and range 5 attacks. If you're looking for a long range control, Ghost Spider and Shuri exist, Mobility, Zemo, and that list can just kind of keep going and going. So as for affiliations, I would keep him in Avengers, whether that is his own or Steve's, because Sam's array of superpower is actually quite nice, and you will at least be using one of them on his turn every single time, and likely any time he is targeted and can use the Mighty Shield as well. And a turn 1 range 2 place for a nearby buddy when Sam moves is quite solid. And with that, let's talk about Sam's leadership for the Avengers. All new, all different. It triggers when Sam or an allied character is dazed or KO'd. You can then choose another non-dazed character. That character gets to remove 1 damage, remove 1 special condition, and may advance short. And each character can only be affected by this ability once per round. This is a new style of leadership compared to everything else we have seen in the game so far. For one thing, its trigger is dependent upon something you typically don't want to have happening. But the reward for having it happen can save an ally from a terrible fate, help keep your characters on objectives, remove an awful status condition like stagger, shock, or incinerate. All of this to say, the effect is very powerful, but it has 2 downsides. The first is the more obvious one to me at least, and that is that your team being dazed and KO'd is not a good thing for the game state. It means you are dropping objectives and losing out on secures with healthy characters. This can be mitigated by bringing lots of characters though. The second major downside is that your opponent more often than not is the one who's going to determine when your leadership ability is going to trigger. Teams like Wakanda and the Web Warriors are really powerful control teams that don't necessarily have to put out large amounts of damage to be able to win games. And you kind of want your team to be taking damage. Now, this isn't always going to be a problem. There are several lists that are focused on removing their opponent's models. Most notorious are probably the Black Order, but there's also teams like X-Force and Spider-Foes whose control game comes down to removing activations from their opponents. Sam's Avengers will actually enjoy those matchups quite a bit. So problem 1 is losing out on objectives. The solution is to go wide and bring lots of characters. The second problem is controlling when your leadership triggers against control lists. The answer to that is bring mobile questions that your opponent has to answer. And when I say question, I mean bring a threat that your opponent will have to answer or pay dearly for if they don't. And you want the mobile one so that you can overcome any short pushes or advances your control-focused opponent is forcing on you. A great in-affiliation example is Ant-Man. With a 6-die builder, a free range 3 place, and a beam 3 attack with 7 dice, your opponent can't just push him out of the way to deal with him in the same way you could a Captain Marvel or any other character that would have to move and then attack. So Ant-Man, Beast, and Valkyrie would all be great examples of this style of character. The other half of the solution are ways to daze your own characters. All you've got is an extremely powerful tactic card with a pretty big downside, as well it will daze or KO the character that played it, but you can also use that effect to your benefit now. My personal favorite secret sauce for this solution though is using Bob. His big rocket attack will cause him to daze himself, and he can constantly be dazed on his other side over and over as long as you activate him at the right time, or rather just don't activate him at all and let him put pressure on objectives. Now, some other neat things to keep in mind with the timing of different effects will stack and other things in the game, like if an ally is dazed and a token is dropped, is the token dropped first or is the leadership going to happen first? How do the timing for things like mission objective line up? Unfortunately, those questions haven't been answered at the time of filming, but I will have a link to the rules forum below where these questions have been asked so that you can inform yourself on what these rulings are once we get them. And now before I close, I want to talk briefly why I don't think you should try to build a roster around both possible leadership abilities within the Avengers. Now, of course, do what you want, but if we look at Brotherhood or Cabal, the teams with the best dual leaders, they both have several inaffiliation options that synergize with both leaders. In Cabal, Zemo, Enchantress, and Crossbones do great with extra power generation from Red Skull, but even when they don't have it, they can still easily slot into Sin's more control/go-wide game plan. In Brotherhood, Mystique plays really well in Magneto's list herself, and the core of Toad and Quicksilver both help fill in the Brotherhood requirement cheaply for Magneto's sake, and they also play really well for some fast-moving characters for Mystique's leadership. And while there is a bit of overlap between Sam and Steve, for characters affiliated, there aren't that many that really just fit the bill. Steve wants to build a value engine for his team so that you can have a resource advantage over your opponent. Characters like Vision, Black Panther, Cable, and now Sam really fit that bill. Sam, on the other hand, really wants to just go as wide as possible and get his value from hard-hitting, cheap characters. And a lot of those characters don't or won't have the synergy that Steve is looking for. Iron Fist, Warmachine, and Ant-Man actually have zero benefits from Steve's leadership. Agent Widow would only get it for her parting shot. Hawkeye being able to hook arrow turn 1 is great, but after that he won't need the discount more often than not. So since Sam is regularly wanting to probably put 6 or more characters on the table, I feel like you're better off making sure that you have a bit more of a toolbox in your reserve than trying to cram in Steve and 3 models that synergize with him. Let me know down in the comments below what your new Avengers rosters are going to look like, and if you're going to try to use both leaderships, and I don't know, just give me your thoughts. And if you're subscribed, that will also enter you into this month's giveaway. And that is everything I have for today. Here at the end, I want to give an extra special thank you to all the members of the Guild Hall who are supporting what I'm doing with the channel. There are always just all these different things I'm wanting to try and do, and because of this extra support, I'm getting to do quite a few of those things now. One of the big ones was being able to host an event here in Nashville that was so much fun, and I look forward to being able to do another one here in the not too distant future, hopefully. If you yourself are interested in supporting the channel, check out the links down in the description for the Guild's Patreon page and Tritex Games page, where you can use that discount code to let them know I sent you their way. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.